Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation. I'm your service associate today, Sherry Nofke, and our presenter is the Reverend Julia Fankuchen. Our service today is Spirituality Part 2. If you have a candle near you, please feel free to draw it close now. As we do our chalice lighting, please join me in the words. In this crowded drama, imagine what you would be like if you spoke to yourself with love. If you embraced your resplendent self like you would a favorite child, full of admiration and approval. And please join me in repeating our affirmation. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation, thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. And so now we'll take a moment of centering. As we do each week, we'll now light candles of joys and concerns for our congregation, our community, and the world. First, we light a candle for Michelle and Steve Poyani's son, who is currently at Air Force Basic Training. And we light a candle for my niece, Katie, who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer. We light a candle of joy and concern for Bram Kastek, who just underwent a procedure to help with pain. And we light a last candle for all the joys and concerns in our hearts and minds. We light this red candle in support of the victims of racial violence.
There are not too many things that are funny during this coronavirus pandemic, but I came across this news item from Alaska about fat bears. Of course, I was taken. Fat Bear Week is hosted every year by the Katmai Conservancy, and it allows the public to vote for which bear will be the chunkiest going into hibernation. After making a donation to local charities, the people get to vote for one of the Lardaceous Leviathan Levels Chunky Challengers. On Fat Bear Tuesday, this year it was in October, the Adipose Award went to Bear 747, who was nicknamed Jumbo Jet. He weighs at least 1,400 pounds, something that will help him get comfortably through the long winter. Now, I wondered how they got the weight of a bear, and I was afraid that they might have, given him anesthesia or something, but no, they don't have to. There are evidently machines that architects use to judge the weight of a building, so they use that to judge his weight. As far as we know, he won't be out until sometime in April and be svelte by then, down to possibly, 1,200 pounds. So this is a Sermon on Spiritual Practice, Part 2. And when I tried it out on Fanny, my husband, he said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" So I apparently started in the middle of the conversation. What I mean by practice is having a commitment to doing something that quiets our minds, enough that we notice our lives. You know, ordinarily my head is chattering and making lists and worrying and figuring things out, and at the end of the day, I can hardly tell you what I've been up to. Where in all my busyness am I noticing how I feel and savoring and expressing thanks? At the end of the day, maybe at the end of my whole life, I'll just have a blurred memory of activity and concerns and will have missed the loveliness of being alive. I will not have counted my blessings or expressed thanks nearly enough. I am so busy with those to-do lists that I will have missed being alive. So last week, I brought up some ideas which I believe point toward the experience of being part of the flow of the world. A very brief, at least in my experience, of what I described as belonging, a deep kind of satisfaction. So this week I want to talk a bit more about practice and explore a few ways that a lot of people claim give us an extra opportunity to develop quiet mind and become more aware of such things as beauty and optimism and hope and joy, and most of all, peace. I know some people think of spiritual practice as a way to be closer to God, and God is such a complex word for us here. But if we substitute words like goodness and peacefulness, I think we're probably pointing in the same direction. I spoke last week about looking at the mountain and feeling something. And this is where words always fail me. But something, a moment of being suspended outside of the responsibilities of the day. It only sometimes happens to me, and I treasure the feeling. It's the sort of feeling that takes me away from ordinary upsets and abrasions and worry and being confused and doing my taxes, which are coming up yet again, and having a flat tire, all those ordinary bits of life. And somehow I am slowed down and more quiet and even peaceful. For me, if I get to that point, that quiet, it doesn't last very long. But often I come away with a bit more perspective, and that feels good. Some people call it flow, and I know that you already know what it is to be in flow. Each of us has had moments of feeling like things are moving in the right direction without having to make effort. Although sometimes those feelings come after having worked really hard. Flow is close to the feeling that everything is in order, and I belong here. I'm at home. Words are so incredibly challenging, but you will no doubt notice the beauty of living when you calm down and move in slow time. Almost universally, people report that when they are in that state, they feel appreciation for all of their lives. It doesn't come from achievement or having done good deeds. It's a quality of mind that's peaceful and grateful. We naturally want it to last a long time, and we try to figure out what will help us get back to those good feelings again. It's one of the reasons that so many Americans live in a consumer culture. We want that grab of pleasure. I want it. I want that grab of pleasure. Today, however, I'm elevating instead the notion of a quiet internal pleasure. You can get excitement out of going to the movies. Remember going to the movies? Or even being out buying groceries. But this is different. And again, I want to use the word peaceful. There's a lack of grasping. Words are still challenging, but you will notice when you get there, you will just feel it. Many people report that the overwhelming feeling is gratitude. And not just for anything in particular, just a kind of quiet joy. I don't think anybody gets to sustain those feelings. Perhaps some monks off in a jungle sanctuary. And again, it's not about achievement or even having done good deeds. It's a satisfied mind. And we want to stay there. We try to figure out what will help us get there again. So I'm trying to point toward those moments of quiet pleasure as opposed to shopping pleasure or game excitement. I need to wrestle a bit more with language. If you get pleasure out of listening to a symphony, or you get pleasure out of a new automobile, or you get pleasure out of what I call spiritual practice, in what ways are they similar, and in what ways are they different? Perhaps my best answer is to ask what you notice after the feelings go away. What happens after you eat the extra chocolate? Maybe you're mad at yourself for the indulgence. There, I've exposed myself yet again. Maybe for you it's not chocolate, but something else. In contrast, there is something about going inside, about getting quiet, having a practice to soothe the mind that brings a deeper sense of something deeper than pleasure. Peacefulness is the best word I have for it. Curiously, a side effect for many, many people, and I don't know why this seems to be associated, but it seems to be, the result is wanting to do something kind, something that serves the world, as opposed to the kind of result we have when we say, overeat, on which I'm an expert. You know how it turns out badly to indulge that kind of appetite, even an appetite for more adventure. But in the moment, all those things seem pretty darn good. Maybe a way to distinguish the reward of practice and a lot of other activities is that it helps us to separate from busy, everyday responsibilities and remember our connection with other living things, other people, and the beauty of the world. It somehow takes us out of agitation and reminds us of that current that runs through life and through us. We used that poem as a chalice lighting last week. To me, it's as clear as any words I know for this kind of belonging. The same stream of life that runs through the world runs through me and dances in rhythmic measure. That's the moon that I point at. Not rollicking happiness, but a quiet and profound kind of satisfaction. And I want more of it. And I know there's a way to practice that helps me to have more interior quiet and that kind of satisfaction. It's really different from shopping pleasure or eating pleasure or travel pleasures, although I know we all find delight in those things too. I know that there's pleasure in so many things, and nothing's wrong with most of them. There is something wrong with gluttony, but that'll be another sermon. I just flashed to preparing for my usual holidays. Typically, especially when I was younger, I had a lot of people come to dinner. I cooked tons of food. There was so much commotion and a great cacophony of laughter. I love to feed people. I love being surrounded by friends. Such gatherings are truly joyous for me. But none of us can stay there indefinitely. It never lasts. Always the acquisitions of stuff or gluttony or even the excitement of parties, they all grow tiresome. So what's more profoundly rewarding? I know we're all seeking for, searching for, hoping for that elusive something. So I'm reminding you of a very ordinary, accessible, possible answer. Be reassured, I'm not talking about God or other realms of being, although my mind wanders there too, but I have found a kind of inner balance when I do it regularly. I wish I could say I'm really good, that I keep my commitments. Because I have, after sustained periods of practice, gotten quiet enough that I really am, at least briefly, more peaceful inside. And I'm present to the here and the now. I pay more deep attention to the birds in my yard, the hawk at the bird bath. You know, it's an enormous bird. And then I might hear the coyotes howl, all because I'm tuned in. I'm being attentive. There's something so lovely about it when I'm not rushing, when I'm not making a ton of noise myself, when I'm not arguing with somebody or something in real life. What I'm calling practice simply helps us to be aware of those things that we know are always present and profoundly beautiful. Music can take us there if we sit down and pay attention, sitting and listening, not listening while something else. Ordinary business is like snacking, and practice is like cool water when you're actually thirsty. There's nothing wrong with either one, and we need both, and it's probably good to have both, to be in the world and not yet of it. Another layer of what I'm calling spiritual work is that as we age, the pleasures of the sort that required physical strength and a voracious intellect, well, they shift. I don't have the stamina to go back to riding horses. I'm most unlikely to go back to school again, although taking classes is good for me. The more demanding mental challenges are really just not going to work anymore. And even going for walks in the woods, I have to admit they're shorter. I'm at an age for paying attention in ways that I didn't when I was younger and oh so busy and prided myself on the many balls I could keep in the air. Now I try to congratulate myself when I can sit down and pay attention. Of course, this taking time is not always related to age, but for many of us, it is when we slow down and are no longer acquiring or managing our families that we begin to notice things, notice marvels that have been there all along. I keep reminding myself that this is my time of life for savoring, and then I forget, and I bemoan what I can no longer do. So my life is remembering and forgetting and so forth and on and on and on. So this is my reminder to you and to me to take that time to pay attention, whether it's with a meditation practice or practicing piano perhaps or something else entirely. Here's the thing. I am daily becoming more aware of how little time I'm likely to have left on this exquisite planet. And I so want to pay attention to this beauty. I want to remember to take periods of listening to music. I want more conversations with friends that are not superficial. I so miss gathering with friends. And for all of these things, I need to cultivate the quiet inside, to let go of the restlessness that has served me well in other stages of life. So please, take time simply to follow your breathing. Maybe sit in the dark. There's something especially marvelous about being where there are no boundaries to things. Keep breathing and pay attention only to the rhythms of your own breath. You're on your honor not to use the time to make a list. I know, that's a challenge. That getting quiet is what this time is for. Your mind will try to wander, that's what minds do, and gently call it back to your breath. Staying for a little bit of time each day cleans up so many bits and pieces that keep us of being aware of this moment, these very moments that make up living. A practice like meditation does give you an extra chance to connect with the beauty and open-heartedness that make life richer. Again, I know some people think it always conflates with silent prayer, the way to be closer to God, but nah, that's a complex word for us here. Just think of it as pointing to goodness. When I look at that mountain, I feel something. That something is a connection to this world, to all that is, and there is that sense of flow. And you know already what that flow is like. We should get to relish that feeling. For me, it always turns into gratitude. We belong here in this beauty and wonder. Again, words are so frustrating. You know when you are being appreciative of the parts of your life, and you probably experience it only in moments. At least I don't know people who stay there all the times. Maybe those yogis who live deep in caves or on lonely mountaintops. These feelings are not about achievement or about doing good works. I just keep trying to find words. If you get pleasure out of listening to a symphony, or pleasure out of buying clothes, or pleasure out of a spiritual practice, they overlap in some ways and they're different in some ways. My best way to distinguish is to ask you to notice what's left after the moment of pleasure. After you eat the extra piece of chocolate. If you're like me, you might be a bit mad at yourself. Maybe it's spending money on something that's pretty that you don't really need. But going into that quiet, especially for those who do it regularly, I'll report a sense of peacefulness. Imagine if we had more peacefulness in our hearts. Other ways to distinguish what it is to have practice from a lot of other activities, it is that it separates us from responsibilities and lets us just savor other people. It quiets our anxiety. It reminds us of that larger current that runs through all of life. The same stream of life that runs through the world, runs through us, and dances in rhythmic measure. The words I keep thinking of are belonging and flowing. I think that's what so many of us are hoping for. When I'm not rushing, when I'm not making noise myself, when I'm not arguing in my head with somebody or with somebody in real life, I hit that peacefulness inside. Occasionally, music takes me there. To repeat again, ordinary busyness is like eating candy, and practice is like cool water when you're thirsty. So, this is a reminder to you and me to savor more. And whether that's with the practice of breathing or something like making art, or making music, or listening to the birds, here's the thing. I know how to keep busy and distracted, and I don't want that to be my life. I want my life to have more attention paid to the beauty that's all around us. I want to listen carefully to music without doing 10 other things. I want more conversations with friends that are not superficial. And I mean the conversations, not the friends. My friends have never been superficial. I encourage you again to sit. Sit anywhere. Maybe sometimes sit in the dark, where there are no boundaries to things. Or maybe simply look around at a tree or the mountain. Follow your breath. Keep consciously breathing. Notice the in and the out. This is the very rhythm of your life. Do not make those lists. Concerns will arise gently, very gently. Just pull your attention back. Refocus on the sky, the clouds, the shadows, the breeze, the bird call, the enduring music of our lives. Just breathe. It quiets the mind and cleans up all those bits and pieces that keep us from being filled with love. I promise that you will keep falling in love with this glorious world. So, by the way, love to you, and happy Valentine's Day. The way is long, sometimes lonely, often confusing, filled with many dilemmas, uncertainties, and sometimes fear. Please remember that you are not alone. We are all in this together. Blessed be.